There's a very interesting dynamic that happens when you get super high stakes cash games where there's like half whales and half pros, because everybody's trying to kind of outmaneuver each other. Obviously the pros are generally better at maneuvering, but the whales are of course trying to adjust as well. They want to beat the pros. That's why they're in this game, right? They want to gamble, they want to beat the pros. And that's what we have here with Jungleman against Tan Juan in an extraordinarily high stakes game with an 8,000 euro straddle. That is a blind bet for 8,000 euros, Jonathan. That's a lot of money.
It's a shockingly big game. And weirdly enough, no one seems to be rolled for it. Not really.
No.
Like, the effective stack in this hand is 52 blinds. I think they maybe just decided to add the straddle last second and no one brought enough money or something. It's a little bit weird. But still, that 52 blinds is still a huge amount of money. That's 415 in this case. 1,000 euro. That's in Tan Juan's stack. That's just a crazy amount of money, of course, and these guys are going to, well, they're going to butt heads.
They're going to butt heads, and that's why Giannis Salanidis suggested it on Twitter. Of course, he included a YouTube link and a timestamp. If you want to suggest a hand for the breakdown, that's how you do it. You got to do it that way.
Yes. Now, I'll say this. In this hand, there's definitely the element of surprise, and in this video, we also have the element of nitrogen, because nitrogen sports poker is a thing that's happening in your life.
Finger guns.
In your damn life, it's happening.
In your life, it's happening. If you use the link that we tweet out when we tweet about our videos, that's how you get access to our exclusive link users only tournament.
Carpet.
It's there's a metaphorical red carpet that happens on the internet when you use that link, and you get access to this tournament. It's an incredibly good tournament. There's 1,000 buy-ins guaranteed. It happens every month. We've never gotten even 200 players. That means there's a lot of value for you if you like math and such, things like that. You could shove every hand, it would still be plus EV in this tournament. It's incredible.
No question about it.
It's an incredible deal.
Other awesome things, it's a Bitcoin-only poker site, which means you get your money in and out super fast, industry-leading 90 minutes to get your money out of there. That's crazy. They also have sports betting. They've got casino games. You just got to get in there and enjoy the nitrogen experience.
You want 250 more? Yes. Yes, come. Yes, I already ordered this cup.
Looks like Tony's adding on 250k. Jungleman opening the action, 9-8 suited. And Schwein again with a reasonable hand, not a monster this time.
I'm over my limit, so all the haters are in love. You like the ace, huh?
Yeah.
Life-saving.
I think as a celebration, I'll join you for a glass.
Oh, nice. Bring him a glass.
For the white wine, please.
White wine.
Yeah, no.
Bring the best bottle of white wine you have in the whole country. Such a huge pro.
For a white wine as well.
Such a huge talent.
Have white.
I had to do what you kids did, 20 years ago, and still stay alive. So.
When did you play poker first time? Which year?
I played
roughly?
from when I went to Australia, like 1985.
25 years.
1985, yeah.
1995?
1985.
Oh, okay, so most of us wasn't born yet.
That's the year I was born.
I just finished college.
Like all four of us, yeah.
Yeah, I played in Phillip Island in Australia. Phillip Island with my family. My family would play. We had a holiday house, and we would play poker. 7-card stud. And 5-card draw, but mainly 7-card stud. There was no Hold'em. I never heard of Hold'em. Then 5-card stud. Maybe when I was 18, 19, 5-card stud in Australia, and then we started playing. And in Crown Casino, it was 5-card stud.
5-card start is every one down,
up, one down.
up,
Yeah.
and
Crown Casino was zero already?
I played it when I was
30 years ago?
No, after. That was the first game we used to play, a big game. The big game, the first big game I played was 5-card stud.
Limit or big bet?
Pot limit.
every
Pot
hand
limit.
3% rate.
5-card stud pot limit, yeah.
Not bad.
That sounds like an interesting game.
Yeah, it was very interesting.
Play so good.
I mean, someone's gonna get it again.
You got cheated.
Put it somewhere. Yeah.
If you've never seen Daniel Jungleman Cates play before, you might think, based on these two actions that he's done so far in this hand, that he's one of the worst players in the world. it is in fact the opposite. He is one of the best players in the world, one of the most feared cash game players in the world. So we have to analyze his decisions as such and understand that, sure, he's opening a reasonable hand and calling when the stack to pot ratio isn't going to be great pre-flop, and then he's calling on this flop with this hand. Let's try to make sense of that.
Okay. Well, let's start with pre-flop. That's the one which is, I mean, they're both really weird, actually. This one makes a little bit more sense. He's at least getting a reasonable-ish price.
It's actually quite a good price because there's the straddle and there's an ante in this game.
True.
You know, it's only 35K to call. He can win like 90.
I mean, that's pretty great.
Yeah.
And of course, he closes the action since they're heads up. That's pretty great, too. But there's, as Grant's saying, some serious stack-to-pot issues already. Saying doesn't play great and being out of position. These are reasons to fold for sure. It's possible that Cates is, playing in these big games with these whales and stuff like that. Part of it is like you don't want to come off as too nitty, and maybe he's calling just to like keep the action going and like not showing that he's like a total nit, so that way they keep inviting him back.
I mean, maybe that's
could play into it a little bit.
But with the straddle, the stack to pot ratio is so small compared to normal cash games. These guys are about 50 blinds effective, which is very strange, especially for such a high stakes cash game. It's possible this is near the beginning of the game, and part of the whole strategy of the pros is to get into a lot of pots with the whale so that people just keep adding chips and chips and chips, and the mistakes get magnified later on. So taking a hand like 8-9 suited, which actually can flop quite well, and maybe making a marginal pre-flop call is a little bit more advantageous in this scenario because we just want more money on the table in general. That's possible as a metagame implication here. But then we get to the flop.
Yeah.
7-7 ace. There is a club.
Woo!
There are 2 sevens. Okay, so Jungleman must be thinking a couple of different things here. One, he has more sevens than Tanjuan, and he can bluff later, representing a 7. And 2, maybe he also has more aces than Tanjuan, and can bluff later, representing an ace. And maybe that is most of his plan, along with maybe I can hit Miracle Runner Runner because the 7 of clubs is out there, and that's good for 8-9 of clubs.
Yeah, and to be clear, the reason why Jungleman would have more aces and more 7s, he has more 7s, well, he has 8s and 9s here, so we assume he can have 7-8 and probably 6-7 and things like that as well. Tanjuan much less likely to have those as a 3-betting hand. And then we really think, well, even though Tanjuan has ace-jack here, that may be the very bottom of his aces. Yeah. Maybe as bad as it gets. Well, if Jungleman's going to show up with 8-9 of clubs, he can show up with ace-10 suited, maybe other suited
maybe
aces.
all ace-wheel suited type hands. Yeah, so maybe he can have more aces in general than Tanjuan, and that's his general thought process, because he can't be calling here just because it's a third pop bet, and he's like, well, I can hit club or like 9-9. You know, that's not the plan, obviously.
No, so I have to imagine that it's some combination of the plan is, well, if I pick up equity on the turn, and probably not gut shot equity, but probably like open ender or a flush draw, that's like I'm gonna check raise and have it all hopefully work out. And if it goes check on the turn, which it's going to a lot, Daniel's just gonna have to bluff the river like some huge percentage of the time, right?
Turns that could connect with his hand,
How
like
many
this
hours
one.
are we filming? 4 hours?
Yeah, we're
3.
taking for 2 hours. So about one more? I think, yeah, midnight we started.
That is exactly the turn that Jungleman is looking for. Maybe he can pull a crazy move, or
off film and we can play
if his opponent checks on the turn, maybe he can try to steal the pot on the river.
Yeah, maybe
representing an ace.
No, that's all I'm playing with. That's it.
Are they started the game, by the way? Did they start the game? Or
They play their own game. 400.
Who's playing?
Rahimo,
Yeah,
Z,
I mean,
and specific
Liu game.
teacher 400. No one else allows this. Okay. I
You see Jungle trying to do just that.
and do robo get everybody drinking, playing.
It's nice, huh? It's very smart.
Nice, I cannot win.
That's at 150,000 euros.
I hit top set twice and
Great check by Tanjuan on the turn.
4 cut straight.
Yeah.
Tanjuan deciding if he wants to just call or raise. I really like this play, but Jungleman. People don't expect their opponents to call with nothing on flops like this. He's gonna get a lot of credit for a 7 or an ace.
just what is too small to care?
flop 怎么打 flop？
Flop 打40，他 call。
All right, so we stopped it on the flop to talk about Jungleman's decisions because there was something to unpack there. I think there's a lot to unpack about Tan Juan's decisions on the turn and the river. Jungleman's decisions, once we get to the turn, actually make perfect sense to me. Let's go through those real quick here. All right, so on the turn, the Jack of Clubs, miracle card for Jungleman's hand, obviously, right? I think he's probably looking to check shove on this type of card, right? He's hoping that Tan Juan is bluffing with something and he's going to bet fold, or maybe Tan Juan is going to bet a little bit too much with weak aces and feel like he has to fold. And if Jungleman gets called, at least he has outs against those hands, right?
Maybe you can get Tan Juan to fold a big ace sometimes, you know, like an ace-queen type
Right,
hand.
because
Maybe.
Jungleman would be repping a 7, of course, if he check shove the turn. Or a 7 or better, effectively, right?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe ace-king, but...
Maybe, but you know, he might show up with that pre-flop because of the 50 blind effective stack and Tan Juan being maybe a bit of a psycho.
Sure.
As we can see. So then we get to the river and Jungleman decides to bluff, which I think makes tons of sense once Tan checks back on the turn. Tan has a bunch of pocket kings, pocket queens, pocket tens type hands that he's gonna fold. He might even fold some small aces because Jungleman goes for 75% of pot here, representing a 7 or maybe minimum ace king if he can show up with ace king, right?
Maybe even ace-queen, but sure.
Maybe. I don't know if he's going to bet ace-queen for value here. There's not a ton of value to be had. Maybe. But obviously he's trying to fold out weaker aces, so it's weird to like, I'm betting ace-queen to get called by weaker aces and I'm betting 150K to get, you know, that's just how poker works sometimes. But whatever. Point being, Jungleman is representing a very strong hand here. Makes tons of sense. I don't think there's much else to say about Jungleman's decisions. They seem fine, right?
Yep.
Of course, folding to the shove. Good decision as well
Nice
with 9
job.
high.
You can tell how this guy's one of the greats.
Yeah, you really can. All right. So the turn, let's go back to that and talk about Tan Juan on the turn. So we said it was a miracle card for Jungleman. It was, but it was also a great card for Tan, obviously. If Jungleman was showing up with ace-queen or ace-king somehow, at this point, Tan Juan is now beating him. And wouldn't you think it's a good time to bet?
It seems preposterous not to bet this turn when the jack comes off. Yes, Jungleman has some 7s some of the time, okay, and more than you do, fine, but he called the flop, which means he also has aces, and we should be trying to get as much value as possible. We, in theory, could probably get all in by the river against a reasonable ace like ace-queen, which absolutely could have played it just like this if Jungleman had that, right?
Of course.
And, like, that's exactly the hand I think we'd be targeting here, maybe an ace-10 suited once in a while. But I just can't imagine why in the world Tan Juan would decide to check the turn and then shove the river. Those things do not go together at all.
They really don't. If you think that the reason he's not betting the turn is to mitigate variance against potential trip 7s, then why would you shove the river? Because Jungleman hasn't done anything to indicate that he's less likely to have trip 7s by the river than he was on the turn, of course. So not really getting the check on the turn, but even more so, really not getting the shove on the river. Let's say, for example, that Jungleman did have ace-queen, which I'm not sure he's going to show up with here, but let's say that he did, which is one of the very few worse hands that maybe he could consider calling with. But really, Tan Juan's going to have the reputation of a complete madman for Jungleman to even consider calling with ace-queen when Tan Juan takes this line and then shoves the river. What is Tan hoping to get called by?
I mean, if Tan is hoping to get called by worse aces, which it would seem like that's what he's targeting, because what else are you really here to target? What else are you hoping to get called by? Then why wouldn't he bet the turn?
Yeah.
Right? Like, that is a much easier way to get the money in against these worse aces. If Tan Juan thinks, I'm such a crazy person, my image is so nuts that I can get called when I shove this river, why wouldn't you bet the turn? Jungleman check called the flop. He's got a lot of aces here, a lot.
By the way, Jungleman probably would have, with his hand, check shove the turn.
Yes.
If Tan Juan had bet the turn.
That's right. Oh my God, Tan Juan gets it all probably.
Yeah, so this seems very strange because Jungleman, although he's not going to love it when he gets shoved on, is probably going to decide distribution based that he has to call with all of his trip 7s if he gets shoved on the river. That's not good for ace-jack, obviously. And he probably will decide distribution based that he has to fold ace-queen, also not good for ace-jack. So
I mean,
what does that leave us with?
Even if you get called by exactly ace-queen, there may not be that many more aces that Jungleman calls you with, and maybe 0.
I would guess 0 for sure. I very much question ace-queen. I doubt he would call with ace-queen.
I don't know if he would or not. But besides, like, we don't think he can really show up with ace-king, as Grant said multiple times. He's probably going to play it differently pre-flop because they're so short. And ace-10 would probably be the bottom of Jungleman's range, maybe some of the ace-wheels. He can probably throw all those away if he knows he has 7s also.
Right, because of course ace-10 and ace-wheel are the same hand at this point on this board.
Of course.
So yeah, I don't really know what Tan Juan's doing on the turn or river. I get what Jungleman did, turn and river. Pre-flop and flop were a bit ambitious. But overall, I guess Tan Juan got to make a decent chunk of money here, but I think he really could have had it all if he bet the turn.
I mean, he definitely did not maximize his value, and that is the point. Tan Juan, though, I guess thought, you know, Jungleman had a really big hand. In the end, he's like, how can he fold? Incredible poker hands broken down decision by decision.
Nice little throw in.
That's our book. So it was weird. Like in the first half of this hand, we thought Jungleman's decisions were questionable at least.
Yeah.
Like, does a good player do these things? Now we know he's a good player, so the answer I guess is yes, but we still have to ask ourselves about why he chose to do those things. Calling pre-flop, calling on the flop. But then the second half, we get everything Jungleman did, and we're really not sure about Tan Juan's decisions. What do you guys think? Do you agree with us that first half it's like Jungleman, in the second half it's like Tan Juan? Or maybe something else. Do you like Tan Juan's
Or maybe
decision?
something else.
Do you like Jungleman's decision to check call the flop with what we think are the intentions to steal it later, at least a lot of the time? Do you think that's ultimately right or not when they're this short? Do you think it's right for Tan Juan to be checking back the turn when he turns so well and really has a lot of Jungleman's hands in absolute jail? Do you like the shove on the river?
That's the big one. That's the big one.
Let us know in the comments. We always look forward to seeing what you have to say.
We always look forward to you buying our book too, which
Yeah.
Jonathan briefly mentioned at the end of the video there. If you click the link that's in the description of this video, that'll take you to our website, thepokerguys.net, where you can buy the book in e-form. You can also take the link to Amazon and get it in paperback form. Hold it in your hands. Tactile, feels good. Get the book.
Yeah, it's called How Can He Fold? Incredible Poker Hands Broken Down Decision by Decision. We break down 37 different hands in text format, short bite-sized chapters. It's a lot of fun. It's also a lot of analysis. If you like these kinds of videos, you're going to love the book for sure.
Yeah, it's a great gift as well, so definitely check it out. Also, of course, check out our podcast. It's an incredible podcast. And also check out this Jungleman hand, you know, right here. It's Jungleman against Phil Hellmuth, who's always fun to root against. Anyway, if you like this video, make sure you subscribe.